The deadbolt snapped, and from my own porch, I watched my daughter-in-law's smirk spread like wet paint as she pocketed a fresh key. My house still smelled like my cinnamon cleaner, but the key I'd carried 20 years did nothing. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. She expected me to plead, to crumble the way grief had once hollowed me out, but I smiled, opened my phone, and began stacking quiet moves, records, screenshots, alerts, because the clock had started, and I was done being polite. I'm Maggie Hale, 61, a respiratory therapist who retired too early and learned to live within lists. I live in Santa Rosa, California, in a low, single-story ranch I bought in 2004, when interest rates felt like mercy. I paid off the mortgage 3 summers ago after my husband died. I kept the yard tight, the pantry alphabetized, and the title clean. Tyler is my only child, 34 and quick with jokes. He married Brianna 3 years back, a whirlwind with perfect brows and a restless mind that could never sit in one lane. Last January, they asked to move in for 3 months, tops after his startup cut staff. I said yes with conditions, and I wrote them down. I typed a simple use and occupancy agreement on my old Dell and printed 3 copies. I wasn't trying to be a landlord. I wanted clarity. We all initialed the rules, contribute $600 monthly to household expenses, no long-term guests, no sublets, and I retained full control of the home. I slid my signed deed and the agreement into a red binder I labeled House, Core. They laughed a little at my binder. I didn't. It unraveled in slow inches. The first month was sweet. We shared dinners. I taught Brianna my way to roast asparagus without turning it to rope. She showed me how to merge photos on my phone. Then the rules started to bend. Packages for strangers appeared on my porch. A ring light moved into my dining room. The hallway smelled like hairspray and hustle. By April, the tone shifted. I heard it in how she said your house when she was charming, and this house when she wasn't. Tyler cushioned her moods like old pillows. When I reminded them about the agreement, she waved her coffee and said, "It's basically ours now. Families evolve." That word stuck in my teeth like gristle. Families evolve. I kept my replies short. I kept my notes longer. Each time a rule bent, I wrote the date and a line. On May 3rd, I photographed the guest room filled with boxes labeled Host Kit. On May 26th, I screen captured a listing that looked suspiciously like my master bedroom. Same quilt, same lamp, under the title Wine Country Suite, Private. The nightly rate was $189. I didn't confront her, not yet. June 15th, 2024, a Saturday, the hot kind that wrinkles patio flags by noon. I went to the farmer's market early. I bought peaches and chard and a roll of butcher paper for wrapping the basil. I was gone 90 minutes. When I returned, the lock fought me. The key ground and stopped. Through the sidelight window, I saw my cat trot to the door and sit like he always did, confused by the glass. The porch camera woke. The door opened a crack, then wide. Brianna stepped out with the confidence of someone who rehearsed in her head and liked the line she gave herself. "It's ours now," she said, the kind of quiet meant for cutting. "You need to go. We'll bring your things to you when you're calm." I looked at my hands. My knuckles were red from the key. The grocery bag pressed a half circle into my wrist. I set the peaches down on the mat. "Okay," I said. Calm traveled through me like a measured breath. I took a photo of the new lock. I took a screenshot of her face in the camera feed. Then I stepped backward, off my welcome mat, and I smiled in a way that made her blink. The first call was to the non-emergency police line. I used facts, not feelings. The dispatcher said it sounded civil and suggested I wait for officers to keep the peace while I requested entry. But then I heard the limitation in her tone, the one that says they can't force a doorknob when family drama is heavy and proof is thin. The second call was to my bank. I asked to place a fraud alert and to freeze any attempt to draw on my home. I already had no mortgage, but I knew how fast a signature could travel in a desperate mind. While I spoke, my phone vibrated. A text from an unfamiliar number contained a verification code and the name of a credit union I use for savings. My smile changed shape. Except, I didn't panic. I walked to my car, set the peaches on the passenger seat, and drove 2 blocks to the shade of a maple. I opened the red binder and photographed the deed again. I photographed the use and occupancy agreement with their initials and the clause about sublets. I emailed those images to myself with the subject line, House, Core, Evidence, June. Then I called the Superior Court's Self-Help Center and asked for help with an emergency filing to get my house back. The clerk directed me to the courthouse website. I filled out the complaint on my phone, fingers steady. I described a lockout and asked for immediate possession. I included the dates. I requested a civil standby by the sheriff's office to prevent escalation when the locks changed back. It felt clinical, like taking a blood gas. One problem, time. Emergency hearings still need a judge to see pages in a calendar to open. The soonest slot was June 18 for ex parte review, with a full hearing likely a week later. That meant at least 3 nights away from my own bed. I booked a modest room off Cleveland Avenue for $169 a night and kept the receipts. I had a sense those numbers would matter. Before I drove away, I opened the Airbnb app I used once for a wedding in San Diego. I searched my neighborhood. There it was, my quilt, my lamp, my wooden cross on the far wall. The listing said hosted by Bree. I took screenshots of the calendar, the rules, the check-in instructions that mentioned a lockbox on the left fence post. I sent those to myself, too. But then a second alert buzzed. Your application for a home equity line of credit is processing, the credit union email read. It included my address but not my email. There was a phone number for the loan officer. My mouth went dry and then cooled, the way it does when you decide on a plan you don't want but will execute cleanly. I called the loan officer. I identified myself and said, "That application is fraudulent. I did not authorize any line of credit. Please flag it, freeze it, and note that any signature is forged." He asked for proof. I sent the deed. I sent the binder's photo. He placed a hold and forwarded me to their fraud investigator. I filed an identity theft report and saved the reference number in a new note labeled HELOC, blocked. Until that day, I hated confrontation. I was the nurse who solved tension by offering warm blankets and graham crackers. But my house is my rib cage. You don't compromise with hands on your ribs. I drove to City Hall and filed a code enforcement complaint for an illegal short-term rental. The clerk was professional and unsurprised. She said an inspector could visit on June 24th, and if the door stayed shut, they could seek an administrative inspection warrant. I stopped at the county recorder's office next and asked for anything recently recorded with my parcel number. The clerk printed a current index. It showed nothing new. I paid $7 for certified copies of my deed and the trust transfer I recorded in March 2022 when I updated my estate plan. I kept the staples in. Staples matter in hearings more than people think. That night in the hotel, I ate 2 peaches for dinner and wrote out a timeline in block letters. January 8th, they moved in, agreement signed. May 26th, screenshot of listing. June 15th, lock changed. I printed the photos at the drugstore kiosk and built a slim binder for court. Exhibits tabbed A through G. I wrote names in the margins, with a fine-tip pen so the judge wouldn't have to guess who was who on the prints. At 8:07 the next morning, a police officer met me at the curb in front of my house. He was kind and restrained, and explained what he could do and what he couldn't. He asked if I had proof of ownership. I showed him the certified deed. He knocked. The door opened 2 inches, and then stopped against a chain. Brianna's voice came through like fog through eucalyptus. "She can't come in," she said. "It's our house now." Tyler said. "The officer asked them to step outside. They didn't. He told me he couldn't force entry without a court order, but he documented the report and gave me a number." "Get your paperwork," he said softly. "We'll stand by when you have it." I thanked him twice and wrote his badge number at the bottom of my timeline. One problem kept needling me, my cat. I called a mobile vet I used once and explained the situation. She offered to deliver food through the sidelight and look for signs of stress. She left a note on my porch with my phone number and instructions for care. Later, my Ring camera recorded a guest pushing the note aside with a rolling suitcase. I added that to my file. On June 18th, I stood in a quiet courtroom wearing a navy dress my husband liked. It was a short ex parte session, the kind that moves like a hinge. The judge read my declaration. She issued a temporary order restoring my right to access, set a full hearing for June 25th, and authorized a civil standby by the sheriff's office so I could change the locks without a scene. I walked out with a stamped order that felt heavier than paper. But then my phone buzzed again. The city inspector had attempted a site check. He left a notice of inspection on my door and emailed me. He wrote that operating an unpermitted short-term rental could carry fines per day of violation and that he would return June 24th with an administrative warrant if access was refused. He used the words immediate compliance. Those words are oxygen. Armed with the temporary order, I scheduled the civil standby for the next morning. The Sheriff's Civil Bureau slotted me for 10:30 a.m. on June 19th. I hired a locksmith for the same hour and told him to bring 3 new deadbolts. He wrote the estimate on a carbon paper ticket, $195, and I asked him to keep the original for court. He smiled like he'd been in court before. June 19th, right on the dot, a deputy parked in front of my house. He read the order, walked to the door, and knocked in a way that traveled down my bones. Tyler opened it, his face young and exhausted. "Mom, wait," he said. He looked toward the hallway. "We can talk." "This is the talk," I said, and my voice surprised both of us. The deputy explained the order. We all stepped into the entryway that held my umbrella stand and a new scuff on the baseboard. The locksmith worked fast. The old deadbolt came away like a tooth. The new lock clicked in with a sound I will hear when I die. The deputy gave them 20 minutes to gather essentials. I stood in the kitchen with my hands on the counter and counted the scratches that weren't there last week. The guest room door was open. The ring light had a new tripod. A suitcase lay on my bed with a tag from Oakland International. My quilt smelled like coconut conditioner and someone else's sleep. "Bree," I said and turned. "You're not allowed to host here." My voice stayed even. "The city knows. They'll be back." She stared through me at the window, calculating angles. Tyler asked if they could come back for more boxes later that day. The deputy said any return needed to be scheduled and supervised. We agreed on a 2-hour slot the next afternoon with me home and the deputy parked outside. Everything went into writing. The deputy loved writing. But then the mid-roll surge hit, hard. Back in the hotel that night, the fraud investigator called. Someone had attempted to open a store credit card with my address and a slightly misspelled last name. He told me he flagged it and saw a pattern of coordinated activity that started the same hour my locks changed. He suggested I file a full identity theft report with the FTC and freeze my credit with all 3 bureaus. I did it before brushing my teeth. The full hearing felt like stepping into cold water. June 25, 8:30 a.m., Department 18. High ceilings, flags, the soft shuffle of people learning consequences. The judge, Honorable Marianne Caldwell, read the file with the measured pace of someone who respects paper. Brianna came in a cream blazer. Tyler wore a navy shirt and eyes that wouldn't settle. They had no lawyer. I had one, an efficient woman named Dana I hired with a retainer that made my hands shake for 10 minutes after I wired it. $8,200. Dana presented our exhibits like steps. A. Deed, certified copy. B. Use an occupancy agreement with initials and the line no sublets. C. Photos of the changed lock. D. Police incident number. E. Ring camera stills, including "It's our house now." F. Screenshots of the listing. G. City inspector email and notice of inspection. H. Receipts, hotel, locksmith, filing fees. I. Identity theft report number and the bank's alert. The judge asked questions. I'd rehearsed in my head while washing my face. Who pays the utilities? Me. Has there been any written transfer of title? No. Were they paying rent? No, contribution only, per the agreement. Has anyone else moved in? Yes. Guests via listing I didn't authorize. Why did you say 3 months? Because I love my son and hoped hope would be enough. Brianna tried to pivot. She said, she gave us verbal permission. She said it feels like ours now. The judge asked for proof. There was none. Tyler said Mom said none. Tyler said Mom said make it your home. And the words cracked like old paint in the hard light of legal precision. The judge looked at the agreement again and tapped the line with a fingernail. Paper can save you when people won't. The judge's ruling was specific, and every word stuck. She ordered immediate restoration of exclusive possession to me. She prohibited any short-term rental activity at the property absent a city permit and the owner's written consent. She awarded me statutory damages for the unlawful lockout at $250 per day for 10 days. $2,500. She granted me costs for the locksmith, the hotel, and my filing fee. $1,350, $2 plus $195, plus $495. And, because the agreement had an attorney's fees clause for enforcement, she awarded a portion of my legal fees. $4,500, total $8,982, payable within 30 days, enforceable as a judgment. She also issued a 1-year civil restraining order against Brianna as to my home and me, with peaceful contact, exceptions for scheduled property retrievals. She set the tone. This is not a family dispute in the air. This is a home with an owner and an agreement. Except the city piece hadn't landed yet. On June 27th, Code Enforcement returned with the administrative warrant. I met them at the curb and handed them the judge's order. They inspected my guest room, took photos of the ring light, the guest binder labeled House Rules, and the lockbox still zip-tied to my fence post. A week later, a notice of violation arrived addressed to operator Bree Reyes-Hale, citing unpermitted short-term rental activity with an assessed penalty of $1,500 and a demand for immediate cessation. I didn't have to lift that pen. The city did. Then the platform email came. Your listing has been removed due to a report of unauthorized hosting. The calendar went gray. The profile photo of my bedroom disappeared, and I saved the removal notice in my exhibits folder because paper is a habit that protects me. We scheduled 2 supervised retrievals with the sheriff's office present. I kept the times strict. They brought out boxes labeled kitchen, brie that still contained my copper pot. I measured my jewelry box against the photo I took last winter and confirmed 2 necklaces were missing. I filed a police report with the case number the deputy wrote on the top in tidy block letters. I didn't accuse, I recorded. But then another shoe dropped. A letter from the Department of Social Services, Community Care Licensing, addressed to Brianna at my address, informed her that her application to operate a family child care home at the property was denied due to the restraining order and lack of owner consent. I didn't send anything, the file spoke for itself. Her plan to turn my den into revenue was over before it started. I had not set out to ruin her life. She did that work. I only lifted a mirror. On July 10th, a check arrived by certified mail drawn on a credit union I recognized. It covered the judgment amount, $8,982, down to the last dollar. I took a photo of it before depositing it because pictures freeze time in ways memory can't. I used part of it to reimburse my emergency retainer balance and tucked the rest into a home repair fund labeled with blue tape, stability. Tyler texted me that night. I'm sorry, he wrote. I thought I could fix it without making it worse. I sat at the kitchen table under the pendant lamp we installed the year he graduated and practiced the kind of reply that doesn't salt a wound. I'm safe, I wrote back. This door is open for conversations that respect paper and boundaries. July rolled into August with a soft clarity I hadn't felt in years. I replaced the front door with a heavier slab and a steel plate strike. I reset the alarm code. I signed a service contract for the camera system and labeled the new key set in a way no one would understand but me. I had the fence gate welded and the post set in a deeper footing. I updated my trust to reflect one hard lesson: love is not the same as access. People like to ask if I miss my son. Of course I do. The missing is a muscle that never stops working. But boundaries are bones, and bones keep you upright when the missing tries to fold you. He came by in September, alone, to pull 2 boxes of college books from the garage. We stood in the driveway and spoke about little things. He looked past me at the porch light with the new dusk sensor, and his face eased. On a bright Thursday in October, I baked a peach cobbler from the recipe my mother wrote on a card now feathered at the edges. I set it on the counter and realized the house smelled like my cinnamon cleaner again in the best way. The quiet was not empty, it was chosen. For people who think a lock is only metal, let me say this: a lock is a boundary you install in the world when people won't install it in themselves. When they changed mine, I learned my smile can be a lever, and my phone, properly used, can pry anything back into place. I didn't raise my voice. I raised my proof, and the house exhaled.